Perhaps you've hit a plateau that has you asking, is this it? Have you accomplished all you've set out to do in life and are not feeling as fulfilled as you thought you would? It is normal at midlife to reassess what's working for you and what's not. It's also normal to want to reclaim your time, your energy, and your joy. Let's make the best out of the second half of our lives by having more fun, experiencing more peace, and feeling more joy. If any of this resonates with you, then this podcast is for you. I'm Megan Bayless Bartley. Now let's get ready to shift our shit. Hello and welcome back to our part 2 of episode 6, season 3. I'm Megan Bayless Bartley, joined by Elizabeth McCormack and Britt Riddle. Today we are talking about really prioritizing ourselves and not really needing the need to feel selfish about it, right? We've been using this metaphor, this idea. We've been talking about this idea of on airplanes, we are given permission to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first so that then we can fully be oxygenated to help others. Because if we do not have that oxygen mask on, we are not able to feed ourselves and therefore be able to feed others the oxygen. And so if you're ending 2023 feeling exhausted, feeling fried, feeling worn down, and want 2024 to be different, there may be the need for you to really give yourself permission to put that oxygen mask on yourself first, which is not being selfish. It's about self-care. Right? I mean, that's what true self-care is making sure that you have the energy to take care of yourself so that the things that you do want to do or the people you do want to love on, you have that energy and space to do that. Thoughts, ladies?
Yeah, this has been a lifelong struggle for me to get out of the selfishness of
100%
self-care. And as we were recording our last episode, while you were at a New Year's Day party, Elizabeth, I was sensory fasting for 3 days and did not see a single other person all through the weekend, through yesterday. And that is something that I have grown to learn about myself post-COVID, is that I need once a quarter or so a few days of no people, no activities, nothing, just time with myself, my thoughts. I write, I read, I do creative projects and stuff. And the first time I did that, that felt very, very selfish to take days totally to myself. But I realized that I am a better therapist, a better human, a nicer person when I get that time. And so I've started incorporating that. And I've always done New Year's Day that way, but for years, but incorporating longer stretches of that time. And that's something I've had to come to terms with. I still sometimes feel that need to apologize, that I'm allowed to take that time to myself. And so for me, that continued work of, this is just a part of who I am. I'm an introvert, and I need a lot of more space than most people to recharge, and that's okay. Yes. And that once I'm recharged, I'm really productive and get a lot of things done. And so just figuring out the rhythm, I think is really, really key.
And maybe not needing other people to understand that, because there are definitely a lot less introverts in the world than extroverts. And you don't have to apologize when people don't get that or don't honor that. That's just, it's a societal, norm that people get along or, want to be around people and stuff. And so when that's something that goes against that or is different than that, it's sort of like it catches people's attention, and you can help them understand that if you want to, or you don't have to either.
I mean, my friends will say I go crazy after one day inside my house by myself, and I haven't found my limit for how many days I can do that. But yeah, I think getting out of that need to explain it, and I just usually let people know I'm alive and well, and I'll respond to you when I respond to you. But embracing that and really starting to learn to celebrate it. That once I know that I have this time set aside, I look forward to it, and then I feel rejuvenated. But I really do think, as I said, that finding each person finding their own individual rhythms of rest time, downtime, of boundaries, of closeness, of separation, of all of those kinds of things.
I think I used to have a tension of rest. In previous episodes, we've talked about all the different kinds of rest and how to rest, and, resting is not bad and all those things. But I think I used to have a tension between laziness, of like resting meant you were lazy and you should be up being productive. And I think the theological messaging of, being like Jesus means just go, 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 go. And it's like, that's not the story I read in the Bible about that theological message. So there's some of that kind of plays in, but then I, have this other side of like, okay, if it's lazy on one side, how do I reconcile my fear of missing out? If I'm not out doing all the things, then, I'm missing something that's happening. And so I think it's taken me years, honestly, to like get to a place where it's like, okay, here's what kind of rest I need, and not feeling guilty about needing more sleep than the other people in my house, and kind of justifying that, or saying what I do every day, it's not physically tiring, but it's emotionally tiring. And why at the end of December, after I felt a little bit like our intro with the hamster on the hamster wheel of like of life, of busyness, of crossing off all the lists, dotting all the T's, and doing all the different things, and doing that well, because I respect doing what I do well, but saying, okay, I legit need some rest. I legit am tired at the end of the week and need to not be out with people on Friday nights. I'm really done on Friday and need to rest, and to find ways for that for me. It's not about making it okay for other people. It's about making it okay for me to feel comfortable. I'm not missing out on anything. I can rest and be okay. And I do need time by myself, even though I'm not a teacher in a classroom full of 30 kids all day long, walking around, dealing with all their issues. I'm a one-on-one with one person all day long and a different person every hour. But it's still honoring that is a gift that I can do that, because I have lots of friends that are like, I don't know how you go from one appointment to the next. That's and hearing people just complain all the time, like their image of what I do all day is really distorted. But at the same time, that's how it feels for them versus how it feels for me. And yes, I honor, and the conversations I have are heavy. And so at the end of the day, I'm emotionally tired, and I need to figure out how to emotionally rest. Besides just, if I'm not working, you might find me just laying in my bed because that's my favorite piece of furniture. And
Same.
That's okay, because that's the place where it's like quiet in my house. I live in a house that's big, open concept, and there's other people and a dog. And it's like, no, this is the room where I can shut the door and it's quiet.
Yes.
And it's away from all the things. And so allowing myself that space, I think for all of us, when we look at, what does 2024 look like? And what do I want to feel like in December of 2024 versus what I felt like in December of 2023? I think it's the busyness. I think it's allowing myself, what I want to feel is less busy. And that means I'm going to have to say no. And do I say no well? Sometimes I'm concerned about other people's emotional responses to me saying no. Do they think I'm lazy? Do they think I'm not a good, spouse or a good mom or whatever because I say no to the next PTA fundraiser or Lushy Day or whatever the heck they're always doing, raising money. So it's just a matter of kind of figuring out, honoring what are the ways that I need to do it, what are the ways that I get to rest and be okay with that. And it's not about convincing somebody else. It's about convincing me.
Right. And you're being honest with yourself. And if you choose to, you're being honest with other people about, hey, I just can't do that right now. I'm going to go lay in my bed and read or meditate or whatever the thing is. And no, I'm not depressed. I don't, like getting out of bed. Like I could spend hours in my bed. Part of it for me is a coziness factor, right? Like it's warm, it's cozy. Maybe it's even kind of like womb-like. And it's like, there's something I put my earplugs in so I can't hear anything else going on in the house. I don't know if there's a dog barking or kids who need something. I just kind of shut it all out so that I can rejuvenate for myself. But that's, something that I have to be really honest with myself about. And I own it with the kids and my husband. And I say, like, maybe I say I'd taken a nap. Maybe I say I'm going to go read. I'm going to go have some quiet time. Everybody, at least in my house, they all appreciate that. So everybody kind of goes to their separate corners and zones out with screens or books or, dogs or whatever the thing is. So, I hope what I'm doing with my kids is teaching them how to own what they're needing by me setting that example to say, here's what I'm needing. And you know what? I see it happening where they'll say, like, Mom, I just can't have that conversation right now. Can we talk about that another time? Or like, hey, we've already talked about that. I don't want to talk about that anymore. And it's like, shoot, okay, awesome. Like they're telling me what they need, which doesn't necessarily feel like they're shutting me out. If anything, it's sort of like oh shit, yeah, we have talked about that a couple times. It's me checking in with my own anxiety around, like, wanting to make sure I'm like connecting with them, or I'm, know what's going on or whatever. And, usually they're like, Mom, I got this, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Like that's the whole point of this parenting thing, is for them to get it, to, have their things and be independent. So it's an interesting process though. But I think there is something about that honesty and owning it, with this has nothing to do with you. This has everything to do with me and what I'm needing right now. And this is my truth, and I'm telling you my truth. And so, and I want you to be honest with me and tell me what you're needing, and not lie or keep secrets. Or, I've been on that deep dive this last 6 months about like secret keeping and denial and all these things. And so the more honest we are with ourselves about what we need, right? Hopefully that helps us, have better relationships with others, have other people feel comfortable with that, with us, that we can own things, which the reality is the people that we have difficulties with and need to set boundaries with a lot of times can't own their shit, right? If you really think about it. So I know I'm going off on a tangent.
Well, no, but I think the honesty piece is about, being honest with other people allows them to be honest with us. And so when we have somebody who you're like, hey, let's go make plans, and then they just kind of ghost you and you don't really know, are we doing something? Are we not doing something? And it just kind of lays flat. And you're like, oh, they maybe don't feel honest to say, no, I need to lay in my bed. Like they don't have that comfortable open dialogue, feel vulnerable about saying, no, actually, I don't need that right now. I need this other thing. And for that to be okay. And that it's my responsibility to manage my feelings about it. So I think we do have to kind of be the front runners, the leaders of this kind of behavior, to say, here, let's be honest with each other about what we actually need. And sometimes, my friends will make jokes about our family. Will say, oh, we've got diarrhea, or, that diarrhea joke. It still is present. But at the same time, people know that, like, I have some different things where it's like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. That's a red flag for me. I'm ready to go home and be alone and in my bed and all those things. And I think I stayed out late a little bit over the New Year's Eve kind of weekend, where I think I was at somebody's house until 9:40. And my spouse was like, dang, you are living your highest life being out till 9:40, but I mean, everybody's kind of come to accept that about me. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to stay at your house too long. You can invite me over, and I'm going to be, whoop, I'm right out of there, because I like to be at home. And I, like, my youngest was, I want to stay up for New Year's Eve. And I was like, sorry, buddy, I absolutely have no interest in that. I really value sleeping, and I'm not really a sleep in kind of person. I'll be awake and everybody else will be sleeping their little heads away at my house. And it's like, I know that about myself. I know that even if I stay up till ringing the new year with you, I'm going to be up at 6 a.m. still. So I'm not really getting my best sleep. So I'm going to do better if I protect that. And if I say no, and I say, hey, it's been real fun. Thanks. Happy New Year. I'm out. Like, dinner was beautiful. see you. And the joke at my house is all kind of old grandpa jokes. See you next year, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if you say that again, I'm going to lose my mind. But it's so hilarious.
Yes.
To say. So,
yeah, I think too, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Britt.
I was going to say, I think too that considering our relationships with other people when we're talking about being truthful and being honest, that with our close family, we want them to have that mutual relationship where I can say, you know what, I'm going home, and they can say, you know what, I'm not even coming over. And then our close friends, I grew up in a house where my whole family, you wouldn't have known any of the four of us were in the house. So I grew up around them close. But then so our close friends, we may want that mutual trust back and forth of, I really just don't have the capacity, the energy to do that today. But then there's also all of the other societal, organizational, just acquaintance expectations where they don't have to know the whole truth. The whole truth can be, I have another commitment, and the commitment may be laying in my bed, or I'm not available, period. And I our anxiety, we tend to get into this need to over-explain and to come up with something. And I mean, I remember as a kid, my parents always just said, if you ever need an excuse, just use us. Just, we'll go with it, whatever. But yeah, I mean, as adults, that ability to simply say no, period, or I'm not available, period, or I can't do that, I have another commitment, period, and not feeling that need to have to, the anxiety really, to have to over explain ourselves. So I think it's really important to consider who it is that we're engaging with and how much of our truth that they even deserve to have.
Yes, 100%. And that could be an interesting challenge for each of us this year, because I think this takes practice, and we're all therapists, and we've been doing this, in different ways for different, long time, and thinking about these things in these ways. And so this might all be really, really new for people, and it feels really, really scary. And I remember trying this out, and it did feel scary. Like, what did I have FOMO? Was I worried what people were going to think? Of course.
It still feels scary.
Right. Yes. And so part of this is just practicing it a little bit at a time to just see, getting more and more used to it, and see like, oh, well, they didn't respond poorly, or, nobody, cut me off or did whatever. And so maybe I can try that again. Or maybe you're going to get different responses from different people, and that gives you more information, and you get to make a more informed decision with different people, because you're going to know your audience and see what might work better with different people. But the idea of like, honoring ourselves, being, caretaking and self-care of ourselves, putting that oxygen mask on first, so that we do have enough energy that's going to sustain us through this hour, through this day, through this week, through this month, through this year, and thinking about, like, right before we came on our part 1 recording, I hadn't eaten lunch yet, and I was hungry, and I was like, I'm hungry to the point of hangry, and that's not going to be a good, conversation. I'm not going to be in an appropriate mood for us to record this. So I better eat some food and prioritize myself, and, get some protein in my body so that I could sustain an hour of this discussion where I wasn't thinking about my grumbling stomach, or the fact that I'm like, I bet they all have had lunch and I haven't had lunch. But that's not their fault. That's my fault, right? It's like I wasn't managing my time well enough. So it can be as simple as, making those choices of like, okay, I'm hungry, I gotta pee, I gotta whatever. Like, I just need to own it, take care of myself, and not, trust that the other person's gonna be receptive to that. And if they're not, that gives me more information to make a more informed choice with that person in the future. Well, we're going to wrap this up from here. We have some really cool freebies that you can find. We have a link in the show notes on our website, mindfulness-center.com. Some really cool worksheets that help get your year started off right. One being the values exercise that Britt has created, and another one being the shoulds and coulds exercise about, are you shoulding all over yourself? So we'd love to share those with you. Feel free to check them out in our show notes. Ladies, thanks for joining me again with Shifting Our Shit, and we'll continue to see you in the new year.
Thanks.